I know that for central lines, we have dramatically reduced our complication rate in central lines by using a strategy of respiratory therapists owning that line, using sonography to make sure that they place it safely the first time. And at the same time, we're freeing up our physicians to do higher level professional work. The other thing that I know is that we have dramatically reduced radiation exposure in children who present to our emergency rooms with a risk of appendicitis. Appendicitis is potentially a life-threatening emergency, and historically, all of those kids have gotten CT scans. That's a huge dose of radiation for a young body that's still developing. They're most vulnerable to it. So I'm particularly proud of our ability to dramatically reduce the radiation exposure in that vulnerable population. With point-of-care ultrasound, using this to evaluate the pump, in other words, the heart in patients who are gravely ill, in shock, that is information that we need immediately. We can't wait for somebody to come in. We need to know right now whether that pump is failing because it's empty and we need fluid, or whether that pump is failing because it's full and we need to get fluid off. It's not always obvious externally. Sonography can answer that question in real time almost immediately. And so that's where we've put our focus on the point-of-care ultrasound, where we trained a cohort of telephysicians to be able to interpret studies acquired by the respiratory therapist at the bedside for the sickest of the sick. That, I can tell you, makes too much sense to me to fail. It's early in the process, so we don't have statistically relevant data yet, but we have lots of stories. We have patients who come in, the physician is convinced that it's one thing, and yet we find with sonography that it's another. You know, it's interesting. The use of sonography has been shown to be non-inferior. In other words, it's no worse than placing a central line for the assessment of shock. Now, there are lots of reasons to place central lines. One of them in very sick patients is to understand that pump problem. Is it empty or is it full? Well, you can place a central line. That's an invasive procedure, or you can do a sonogram. Non-invasive gives you the answer right now. I'm really trying to shift our thinking in those critically ill patients to that point-of-care ultrasound as the solution for that particular problem, and we're making headway.